Welcome, everyone, to UMRA Reads discussion of Abraham Verghese's book, The Tennis Partner. Monica, go ahead and start us off.
Well, when I read this book, uh, I felt it was the best memoir I had really read for several reasons. One, if you know his fictional writing style, it was completely different writing style, very personal, um, no attempts to be literary, and it was just very direct and moving. I also felt that it was very honest, that he didn't try to hide things that he felt were drawbacks in the way he had approached this friendship. I also thought it was a real memoir because a memoir is supposed to be just a section of a person's life. Too many times we call memoirs, nowadays, autobiographies are called memoirs. But a real memoir is supposed to focus um, very much on one aspect, and that's pretty much what this is about his relationship with his tennis partner, who was also his medical student and he was the supervisor of this person. So we had a double relation. One is the supervisor of a medical student, and the other was the partner who played tennis better than he did. Uh, it's semi-tragic. But the other thing I really liked about it is when I finished it, I felt bereft that I'd no longer have him talking to me because I felt through the memoir, I really heard his voice. And I was sorry not to hear it. Now, I do know him. I do email with him sometimes. So, but that it had nothing to do with that. It was just simply a person pouring out his heart and his feelings and in a way that it just seemed very direct. So I'll stop there.
I really had trouble putting the book down. Like I said, I'm almost done with it, but I played tennis in high school, and I don't play tennis much anymore because everybody stopped playing tennis. I can't find anybody to play anymore. But I liked this tennis aspect of it. He went back to explaining tennis and in great detail at times, and I'm not sure everybody would like that, but I like, wow, I remember trying to do that or that. I didn't accomplish anything like what he did, or particularly David did. But I liked his. It was a story about a life, not the best. The story about lives, not the best lives. People that get into drugs. On the other hand, the tennis aspect of it and the excitement of that. The poor ladies that got dumped off to the side because of the drug things and what they had to go through. I mean, you had a lot to be, to feel bad for people along the way, but I don't know, it just, even how he describes El Paso, this guy was an interesting part of the book. There was just a lot, and and the chapters are short, so I can read one more, I can read one more, and even though with the small print and it was hard to get the book, I really enjoyed it, maybe more than I thought that I would.
I agree with you about the the description of the tennis. And I think when we were just starting to come online and only a couple of us were here, someone had said, boy, in his other books, which often include a lot of medicine, he goes into great detail in medicine, which might boggle someone's mind if you're not somewhat medically oriented. But see, that was me. Tennis, I'm not very tennis oriented. I know a little, you throw the ball, you hit the ball, and there you go. So it was kind of interesting. I mean, at first he went into such detail over and over and over. I thought he's obviously doing this on purpose. And yes, maybe just to appreciate the art of the sport, or yeah, there's a whole lot more than just hitting the ball, and it's a lot of a mental game. And and how it wove into their relationship of, first the student teaching the teacher because he knew the tennis better, and then gradually they evened out a little bit more. So, but I do have to admit, when he was going into those long periods of discussions of certain approaches to hitting the ball or whatever, that I was a little aggravated at first because I thought, oh, this is kind of going on and on. But if you just relax into it and just try to really listen to it and appreciate what you're learning here about the game, you'll probably get more out of it. It's all about attitude, a lot of things are. And honestly, it helped me to just feel like, okay, this is a part of the book and he's wanting it to be this way. He also did that, I think, with the medical aspects, going into various detail about the patients and all. But see, because I understood a little more of that, it just seemed like more easy, reading, so to speak. And then I'll say one other thing and then I'll be quiet. The one thing though that I'd wonder, and maybe Monica, you could address it as a physician or anyone else, what they think as a physician or not. At first, the relationship between the teacher and the student. It was never like, inappropriate in any sort of, sexual way or whatever. But David was his student at the time, and he was spending a lot of time with him outside of the hospital. And I just wondered, like in this day and age, would he be criticized for that? That somehow, even if the student's very good, if he got a very good grade, would it be questioned? Well, hey, he's, Abe's buddy, and no wonder he got a good grade, that sort of thing. And I just wondered, granted, it took place years ago and things were sort of different as far as what's allowed and not allowed, but it just somehow that never came up in the text. He never addressed it in any way. So maybe I was the only one that it sort of crossed my mind right away. But there you go.
Well, I thought they had a very intense relationship, and that certainly, I mean, that is the basis of the book, how the relationship, well, underneath it all, how that relationship changed and was so tragic and so difficult. Uh, so I had the immediate sort of feeling that he was getting very involved with this guy, but it was because of his love of tennis and that this guy, whatever. But when I read the medical parts and sort of how he was tough on the guy, I think if I remember correctly, there were some places where he really chewed him out, especially early. Um,
Okay.
so
I didn't think about that. Okay.
I don't know if he's that tough on all his students. I thought he was more tough than I ever was. But
Yeah. Yeah, and it didn't strike me as being like terribly wrong, but it just did gnaw at me a little bit. Usually when people are criticized for things, it's when someone is supervising someone else and maybe they have a romantic relationship and maybe there could be some thought, boy, does that person's job depend on this? And now they're in this relationship and, blah, blah, blah. This was not like that, but it was, a very strong relationship outside of the typical
that's right.
workplace. So
It
it
was
crossed my mind.
intense. I think that's why he even wrote the book,
Yeah,
because he was so entwined with this guy and so moved by what he could help him with and what he wished he could help him with and what
yeah,
he felt guilty about not helping him with,
yeah.
that there was this intertwined relationship. And I don't know. Well, we'll see what other people think.
I think the opposite was true though also. He needed David's help because going through the divorce that he was
That's
going
right.
through, he was looking forward to the tennis matches because he didn't have anything else to do other than his two boys who lived with the mother. He that's what I think it almost started out that and it
Yeah.
developed into once he knew more about David, it became more about helping David, but it started out, I think, helping him more.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
it,
Only once, I think a boundary was crossed for only one day of poor judgment, because they were such close friends. That later, when David started using again after he'd been clean for so long, and he told Abe, and Abe, hey, this guy is seeing patients and all, and if you know he's using drugs, I think, the appropriate thing without question is to report it to those and maybe get him off the wards. And it took him a day to do that. And I don't remember that he even did that. I think someone called his mentor within, the drug community, and that guy told, informed the hospital that he was using again. So that's where I thought the one time
Mm.
that maybe the relationship really influenced him beyond good judgment, because now granted, he stressed about it and he was torn, but it was interesting. That's what made it a good book too. It shows you
Right.
how our relationships affect us, and how, sometimes we do right and sometimes we don't do so right. Yeah.
And that's what I meant about when I said that he was totally honest and open in
Yeah.
this book about the things that he felt he had done wrong and so forth, which I thought was quite amazing, especially for a very famous person,
Yeah.
a writer who was a bestseller, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was just a fantastic book. Like I said, I got the paper one, but I didn't have a lot of time to read it, and the I was able to get the voice one on Hoopla through the
Hmm.
library, and I just I was doing some handwork while I was listening, and it was so interesting that, I wanted to hear the next and the next. And I think that first chapter just draws you in,
Yeah.
and then they kind of drop it. And I have not finished yet, but I'm right at the point, sort of a little after what you had just mentioned, Susan, about the when he started using again and his relationships were, deteriorating. And I think this Emily had come to see Abe. And so, but I was really taken by the theme of the friendship, the sort of the flow at the hospital. I like the insights of his practice around AIDS patients, and I thought that was really interesting. And I really liked the tennis part. I have a good friend that's husband is he's like just over 80, and he's from the U of M community, and every he's played tennis since he was a kid, and he lives and breathes tennis. And he lives in Palm Springs. She and her husband, they live in Palm Springs for half of the year because there's a lot of tennis there, so you might try there, Al. And he goes to he's won like in the 80 and over and 75 and over and all of that. And I just kind of can't wait to send him this book, although perhaps it's been around a while and maybe he's read it. But it one of you, maybe Susan, you said like just hearing like there is so much more than volleying the ball back and forth, and there's so much about the mind in it and all of that, that I just found that really fascinating as well. Um, anyway,
He also covers at the golden age of tennis for U.S. Right now, most of the players are other countries, and this is the era of Jimmy Connors and Alex Agassi and Arthur Ashe, and how he goes into, oh, I was really rooting for Arthur Ashe in this match, and here's what happened. And he reviews. I mean, it almost like, well, did they really need that in the book? Now, I really appreciated that because I was watching tennis left and right at that point. And the other thing is, he really likes the French Open, and Cindy and I went to the French Open this last year. And so it's like, oh, he really liked the French Open. He describes the courts and everything. So there was a lot of things about tennis what the reason I liked the book. But the one other thing you said that I really liked is this book was real easy to pick up and really get into right away. And it didn't have a lot of books we've been reading have like 40 characters in them, or I'm sorry, that's an exaggeration, but they have a lot of characters. This one, I didn't have any trouble remembering all the characters. There's just a few, and I didn't have to go, who was that again? And I didn't have to make a list of who the people were. It's an easy book to read, and it gets you off into a lot of different side stories like tennis and the medicine, but then it always comes back to the main story, which is the relationship between the two of them. So sorry if I'm talking too much, but that's
Oh, the talking book, I don't know, those of you that listen to that, I really thought I would be done with this because I had a real long drive from Wisconsin to here the other day. But between the sounds of the road, which the voice of Abraham would come through, but he actually dropped his voice when he was saying the words of David. He
Oh, I
just made
agree
them
with you.
quiet. Can you kind of remember that he did that?
Oh, it was so quiet.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd have to just be turning up the volume. I loved the tone and the accent, and you could tell, but really, he needed to bring up that volume, I think.
I mean, so I could hear half the conversations they had, and there was a lot of that in there. And so I just had to stop listening on my trip. And I was sorry about that because I like the way that he read it, but I do think that that's interesting the way he did that, and that when people read books for talking books, that it's just a consideration.
Yeah. You would think there'd be an editor, wouldn't you, from the producer of the audiobook, who would make sure that it's easily heard, all aspects of it
Yeah.
for the person listening, but that didn't work on this one. I agree. Mhm.
What did you?
Pat, you didn't read much of it, so I'm waiting to hear your
I
reaction.
have to, I have to, I have to say the first chapter just grabbed me. It was very, very interesting. And it wasn't until the other night I got back to it. We were in Iceland and I had it with me on the airplane, but I ended up watching movies because mentally they were easier. And I was so tired because we drove to Chicago and then got the plane, and then we didn't get in until 6:40 the next morning, and then it was just it was a and then I had a cold, and it just went on, and I didn't have the energy to listen to the book. But anyway, the first chapter really grabbed me, and I've just gotten to where he's met David. So it should be interesting, and it's probably one of those books that I'm going to read anyway. And I also have to say that I'm guilty of putting another book in between. I had read something about Eric Broderman, um, the man called Ove, the author of that book. He's written something called My Friends, and I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. So I read another book in between. So I didn't do justice to this one. So it's a book I'll recommend for everybody next year, But anyway, but the first chapter I read really caught my interest, and so hopefully I'll go ahead and finish it. So
Yeah, I thought that the
yeah,
the first chapter was just a masterful start
right.
to this work. Raw and ragged, and it should have alerted me to the tragedy to come. But just got so into the book and the story and the relationship that I was just engrossed with it. I, it just was sort of overwhelming to me, this friendship. And I got halfway through the book, and all of a sudden it was like somebody hit me in the head with a hammer, and said, this isn't going to end well. you're going to be sad. This is a tragedy. But I loved both aspects of the emotional aspects. He's going through this divorce, and I don't really think he wanted it. So you just got this incredible sense of who he was and what he was struggling with. And then he moves into this apartment, and it's bare, and he's using cardboard boxes for end tables, um and it was, to me, it was, his message was that he wasn't really able to accept this this change in his life. A loss for him was the loss of this relationship. And he did a good job of, or a decent job of, staying connected with his boys, except that he never really committed to letting go of the past. And I think that's probably, he couldn't let go of David either. Both, he was connected to him because of their mutual love of tennis. But he also, as a relationship grew, it was connected to him on a personal level. And so when the challenge came, when the ethical challenge came, whether to report him or not, I could understand how torn he was, how hard it was for him to accept the fact that, this was not going to end well. Um, I wondered, if there are truly these facilities that focus just on physicians and physician addiction, and is that, are is there are well, there must be, because he apparently went
Yeah.
to this facility, which, I guess, for people, anyone to admit that they have a problem, and an addiction is horrendous. But for physicians, I guess the mentor just knew, uh, that either you go in and get treatment, or
You're
you're
out.
you're done. Um, I think that, it was important for him to have that revelation, that awakening at the end, of the author at the end, where he finally, did he buy a house, or did he go to a new apartment? Anyway, he got furniture.
Something.
He went to a new apartment. I'm just at that stage right now. So he went to an apartment and he bought furniture and he bought bunk beds for the boys and a queen bed for himself. And so yeah, so he just moved into an apartment where he actually had some real furniture.
So you've got this sort of dual storyline going through the whole book. You've got his relationship with David, and maybe there's a triple story. You've got the path through medical school, and what, medical school, and being a physician in El Paso. And then you've got his relationship with David, and then you've got his personal relationship. So it's a power-packed novel. Um, and it was just, it just hit me in the chest when I realized that David wasn't going to survive, that David was going to succumb to his disease, and there was not one thing that anyone could do to save him.
And but also how he attracted people that wanted to save him. So it wasn't just Abe. It's both Gloria and Emily, is that her name? And Emily. He was able to attract such people that wanted to help him.
But
And
don't you think that that's addiction? I mean, think of people around people with dependencies, and the support it is there. I mean, I think that people are often surrounded by their friends and families who love them and care for them and want things to go well. And no
I
matter how
can,
you,
I can understand family, but these are not family members, and that I don't I don't have a lot much experience with drugs. I do have a nephew that had trouble with drugs, and as much as we tried to help him, it really was kind of disgusting the approach he took to things. But you're right. We tried to help him, but that's because we're family. These are just two women that fell in love with him along the way because he had I guess, an interesting personality or something, and and yet Gloria stuck with him for a long time, and then this Emily still wanted to help him even after all the other things that were going on. It's like, I don't know. It's another interesting aspect of it, another intriguing thing that, what people will do to help somebody that basically can't help himself.
well, and the author just did a wonderful job of capturing emotions and feelings and circumstances and describing these circumstances. I just, um, I don't know. I think you said, Stephanie, this is different, or maybe Susan, it's different from his other books.
I did say that
But yet it
it's
was no less powerful in
right.
its impact on me.
Monica, how do you know him?
Well, there aren't very many physician novelists around. And so I guess that's how.
Oh, okay.
We don't correspond that much, but here and there.
That's
How
that.
old is he now?
Pardon?
How old is he now? Do you
I
know?
think he's retired. I think, oh, well, no, not retired. The last email he said well, not only is he writing all these wonderful books, but he is an administrator in the medical center where he works. In addition to being a physician, there are things on YouTube of him talking about examining patients and how he's sort of old school. The young doctors nowadays, all they do is they look at the lab test results. But the older doctors really made an art out of the physical examination. And maybe with his training, he got even more. So you could find one, and he starts with the fingertips and how anyway, he's a wonderful physician. And in addition, he had administrative roles. And so the last email he said, well, he was, because his last book became so popular and Oprah picked it up, and I don't know if they're making a movie of it, but he was on this world tour at the same time when he had to empty out his office because he was retiring from one of these administrative positions. So I don't know what that tells us about his age, but he's not retired, or he wasn't a year or so ago. Um, but he's very busy.
Was that the Covenant of Water that was
Yeah,
recent?
yeah. And he did say he's working on something. So he didn't say what. Um, and
Now,
he just ends by saying, keep writing. But he has a lot more energy than I do.
now with this book, now I think there might be two for sure, and maybe three here who haven't actually read the ending yet. Did you read the ending yet, Stephanie?
No.
Okay, so you and Pat and Elle. So it's hard to say much about it, other than just sort of saying, as Sharon intimated that this wasn't going to go well for David. I just felt it
I've
wasn't
reached
going to
that
go well.
I've reached that conclusion already,
I
Right.
so
have
I'm
two.
expecting
I
that.
have two. So
But
you
it didn't
didn't
go
let
well.
the cat out of the bag,
Yeah.
but
But it didn't go well in a different way than I thought. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
And
Yeah.
it surprised me a little and was interesting and an even more complete view of things and what happens in life. So
I
that
gave you,
thing,
oh,
and
go
then
ahead.
I
Sorry.
guess we could talk about the women, the two women primarily, and how the people who knew him better, or when he was, I think he went to therapy or whatever, and they said, really, even, I don't know if it's worse or more than the drug addiction was sort of a sex addiction, in that it was, but they used that term, but it turned out different than I thought it was going to be. Like when he'd be living with one, who Emily, and then I guess what was her name, Gloria, the other one comes back into the picture because she moves into town, and so he says to her, "Oh, just say the word, and I'll move back with you." But here he is living with this other woman, and he just sort of kind of goes back and forth without really realizing or honoring the fact that if you're living with someone, that's a pretty strong commitment, or
Actually engaged to her even.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Right. So it's just that, just sort of being surprised that, well, hey, we all know if Gloria comes, I'm going back. But then he wasn't all that great to Gloria either. It was just a mess. And I'm sure the drug addiction overran everything and influenced his ability to even think through these things straight. I don't know.
and
But go ahead.
I think we had some really interesting insights into his family just not being very supportive in any way. They wanted him a certain way,
Yeah.
um, and he then when he went back, he had no feeling for his mother when she was on her deathbed, or at least he couldn't bring him to the surface. I don't know, but I think he he didn't. It sounded like he didn't have what a person might need to, not that it caused his drug addiction, but that there was part of him that sort of wasn't complete, or I don't know how to word it, but he had a sad upbringing, it sounded like. I mean, plenty of
That
people have
that
sad
came
upbringings and they don't become drug users, but it was something about him. He couldn't even stay there with his mother. He flew back right away.
And that would be another reason why, somebody might give up on him. And if Abe said, look, all right, I know we developed this friendship, but your attitude towards your mother, that's it. You're just not somebody I want to be friends with anymore. I mean, you would think, and some people would say that, your approach to, to your mother, yes, she lived in Australia, but, I don't even care. I don't want to go. I don't care if she dies. That would turn some people off that would say, all right, I'm done helping you at that point. But that didn't happen either.
I mean, maybe he just needed to say, I'm not going. I'm cutting these people off. They were not what they needed to be. But I mean, I don't know. He went. So I don't know. You probably know more about that, Monica, just from a psychiatry point of view, like as adults, how people process their childhoods and all of that. But he wasn't on board with going. He went out of, um, I don't know, his family sort of, and and Abraham sort of guilt tripped him into going.
Yeah.
I unfortunately have to leave. I'm really glad to hear your stories because I really did enjoy this book and looking forward to finishing up over probably today or tomorrow. So Monica, thanks for recommending it. I think I don't know if it just this book really grabs you.
It does. It
And
really does. And that's the amazing thing. You have somebody who has this mode of fiction, and then all of a sudden you start reading this, it's a completely different style.
yeah,
It just shows that a great writer is able to shift.
Yes.
so it's good.
Right.
Thanks much. Enjoy the rest, and I'll look for to the AI write-up and see what happens.
Yeah, it goes.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And
Bye.
I think you've all convinced me that I want to read the book.
Good. I don't think you'll be disappointed, Pat.
I don't think I
It's
will.
it's
be.
worth your
No.
investment.
Right.
Definitely. And then
Absolutely.
about this question about the physician addiction, I didn't know either that they had specialized groups, but I suppose it makes sense. I just learned about it through reading the book. Um, I do know that, I don't know, Susan, if you've had any like this, but I did have a resident once who had been treated for alcoholism and was let back into being a physician. But I, as the supervisor, was required to check every week or something. I can't remember exactly what it was a long time ago. But I was supposed to keep track of him and how his work was, and then make some kind of a statement at some point. And he did fine. He was very dedicated and worked very well, and there was never any issue. And then he finished the residency, and he was an excellent physician.
I didn't have any personal, things like that I was responsible for. No, but this guy, it seemed like the follow-up, he was required to go to um, the follow-up drug meetings and be tested randomly within 15 minutes. If the beeper went off, he'd have to go give a urine specimen, etc. So, all that they try as hard, but it's funny because when he lapsed and went back, it sounded like later we found out that he'd really been planning it for a while. Who was it? I guess was it one of the docs or his supervisor within the rehab program who said, he was um, planning going back because he knew the pathologist who usually ran the tests on the urine was going to be out of town for a week or two on a vacation. And he thought no one else would probably randomly call him for a test during that time. So that would be the best time to start shooting cocaine again and get away with it. I thought, oh, it's not just gee, in a bad moment, I lapsed. It was like sort of a subconscious decision is made that I got to or want to do this, and how can I best organize it so that I don't get caught?
So it would be
Personally.
interesting to know if they have things for lawyers or whatever, just to have a cohort of people that you feel some connection with, or
Yes.
whether it's because doctors, they have a route to get drugs very easily,
Yep.
and they know the tricks like that, and it takes another doctor
Yep.
to know that.
Right.
And also the stigma. I think if
And
you were going
but
into a
also,
group, you knew it was all doctors, maybe that would give you a little more encouragement, that you wouldn't be looked down on by other people thinking, boy, you're a doctor and let this happen to you or whatever. It almost reminds me a little tiny bit of years ago when Betty Ford was going through various things, when I think she was still First Lady at that time. And then she formed the Betty Ford Rehab Center. I think her problem was alcoholism, if I remember.
I think so.
And I think that was to give sort of social support to those people more visible or higher echelon or richer or whatever, to still go and have a place they might feel a little more comfortable asking for help. I don't know, and it sounds kind of bad to say that, but I think that was
Mhm.
the gist of it when she started it. Yeah. So,
No, I agree completely. I think that she wanted a facility for, you know, because
Yeah, yeah.
people who are famous or more well known, it's it would be hard to just go into anywhere, a regular treatment facility, and then not be the center of attention or bring other factors into the healing situation, the recovery situation that were just not manageable.
Kind of going back to another subject that Susan brought up about the ethics, if you or whatever word might be applied to it, of the instructor also becoming a friend and all of that. And I kind of think that back then, which I guess it would have been the 80s and 90s, I do think things were different in that regard. And I think that um, I can remember, like, you know, staff going to funerals of patients or, um, you know, graduations or different events. And kind of, I mean, there was a nurse from Holden that actually adopted a baby from Holden eventually. I mean, I don't know how that all transpired, but, um, and I think maybe there's just tighter controls around certain things. And I don't know that that would exactly prevent someone from becoming a friend, but it might give them more pause.
yeah, I just think, right, that today guidelines are stricter about boundaries. Yeah. So, but
But
hey, this is what it was, and it's a
but you
good
see,
story.
through this, you can see how he needed the student
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
and
yeah.
It
both
was,
emotionally as well as because he was going through his own trauma,
Yeah.
as well as loving tennis. I mean, people get addicted to their
Right.
sports like golf or tennis. And he was the path for him to improve his tennis game. So there was need on both sides.
Oh
I
gosh.
kept thinking if he put as much effort into his relationship as he did his tennis, would the marriage have
mhm.
lasted? Because it just seemed like he invested in everything but his relationship with his wife.
I think he even came right out and said it,
I think so
didn't he? Or close to just said it right out that there just wasn't time for that.
And that's what I thought was so remarkable about this book, the honesty, the self-examination, the ability to lay it all out there without trying to cover his ass, to so to speak. It just, I don't know. There's just a lot about this book that just
Yeah, he
made
laid
me think.
himself bare and
Yeah.
and
Monica, had you read it already when you recommended it, or was it just kind of on your to read list and you thought this is
No, I had read it already and I recommended it because I thought it was as I say, the best memoir I've ever read because for all these reasons.
yeah, I'm not a memoir person.
Aren't you? I am.
And so for me to get so pulled into the story and just feel the emotions that I felt, I thought was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There was no fluff and flutter. It was just raw and ragged.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why I say why I think it's the best, really, it's one of the best books because he's able to do that. I don't know. It's very unusual. Most people who write about themselves, I don't think they're completely honest and they don't like that. Um, Yeah, it just bowled me over.
And to not be honest would make it a lesser book, less appealing to the crowds, who would want to be reading it. And also, I think he's got a knack of going in depth into things for a long time without being boring. It seems like I'm a believer that sometimes less is more, but sometimes you could take your time and have it be just set the pace of the story and have it work out. And I think it did work out this way.
Right. And that's why I gained even more respect for his writing skill, that he was
Yeah.
able to, you can do that in a novel, and he does it in his novels, but to shift it into this, and you can just keep, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
interested about on the back of the book. I was just trying to see if it won any awards, but he's described as being a professor of medicine at Stanford and living in Palo Alto. So I don't know when this version was published, even though the copyright's 1998, but I don't know if this came out this version. But anyway, so is he in California now? Do you know?
Yeah, he's still at Stanford.
Well, it will be quite a contrast to the book we're reading next month. I don't know if anyone has picked it up. And
I'm having a hard time.
Oh, yes.
Getting that one.
What
starting,
book is that?
I think it's called Abridged, the classics that you should have read. It's
I probably haven't.
And it seems like it might be lighthearted.
Very-
Like the goal isn't to really get you to
There's
know the
no
whole
lineup.
story, but maybe
Yes.
I don't know. We'll see. I haven't gotten it or read even one page of it yet.
yeah, War and Peace is
You'll whip
described
right through
as
it.
a lot of winter.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
there you
or,
go. Yeah.
Who the lighthouse
So,
was.
yeah. Al
family-
recommended it.
The family wanted to go to the lighthouse. They did, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I
Yes.
think there's several
Very good.
copies on eBay that are cheap, so I might go that route. I think it'll be funny, and I put it in December just because it's a busy time right now
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
Thanksgiving
yeah.
coming upon the other holiday, and so
Thank
it
you.
would be easy, and if we get ourselves in the right mood, maybe make us laugh a little bit, and such.
And I think that will be welcome.
Yeah, we've had some heavy
It will be.
books in the last few months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I liked
Yes.
listening to tennis more than reading about CRISPR.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Well, certainly, yeah. Yeah.
CRISPR was long. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I hear my husband drilling downstairs.
Oh.
You're-
Drilling
you're
into the wall.
Ready to have to.
Oh, yeah, it's a long story. It's actually the living room. We need a new oven in the kitchen, and he has to get an access panel and all. But we're going out. I hope he doesn't get too deep into this. We're going out in about 5 minutes, so we'll see.
Well, thank you for the recommendation, Monica. I think we all
Yes.
enjoyed it. And
Well, I'm thank you for voting for it
Interesting.
so we can talk about
Yeah, it was a good one.
yeah,
All right.
And everybody likes it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good because usually there's some discussion on that. But
yeah, it was
Good.
a lot to talk about, a lot to digest. And
Yep.
kudos to the author for
Yeah.
Good reading.
yeah,
Good reading.
yeah.
All right.
Good
So
reading.
long, everyone. See you
All
next
right,
month.
I'm going to stop
Hattie.
the recording.